Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Olivia of Olivia Sews. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make your own asymmetrical top. I've had this pin on Pinterest saved for I think almost a year. I've been obsessed with this top. I went to the thrift store and I found this really cute blue and white striped button up that I'm going to be using for it. You can use a button up, you can use a dress, you can use a skirt. Just want to make sure that you have a piece of fabric that's wide enough to fit the measurements that we'll go over later in the video. You're only going to be using your sewing machine, so no serger today. We're going to be making our own bias tape for the straps. Personally, I've just been liking bias tape more for straps because the loop turner has been frustrating me a little bit lately. It's all based on your own measurements, so there's no pattern required. So let's go ahead and get right into it. For this project, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have a Tailors tape measure, as well as some pins and clips. I like using an erasable marker because this evaporates with heat. You're gonna want some thread that matches your garment, a seam ripper, a buttonhole presser foot. These usually come standard with your sewing machine. If you don't have one, you can always pick these up for super cheap. Also, a 1-inch bias tape maker. If you don't want to get one of these, that's totally okay. You can just make straps the normal way with a loop turner. You're also going to want to make sure that you have a pair of scissors. Over here, I also have a quilters ruler, as well as a rotary cutter and a self-healing cutting mat. Now, these things are optional. You can just use regular scissors and your Tailors measuring tape to mark and cut everything, but I really like using these just because it keeps it laying super flat. I'm able to get a clean line. If you're sewing a lot, it's definitely worth the investment. Okay, so let's get into how you take your own measurements. Today I'm going to be using my dress form just because it'll be easier for me to demonstrate and show you how to do it on the dress form versus doing it on myself. Face forward, it might be easier if you do this in the mirror and figure out where you want the top of your top to be. So I've marked that on my dress form here with this pink pin. I want to come up super high neck and be like right under where my collarbone is, and it's gonna go across here and down and across here. So then afterwards, I want you to figure out where the midpoint on your back is. What I'm gonna have you do is find the distance when you go all the way around on one side and then go all the way around on the other side. I'm just gonna put my tape measure down and around and measure to the back here to where this point is. And then I'll do it on the other side. And around. This is when the quilter's ruler comes in really handy because it has these angles on here. We're going to be using the 30-degree angle to help make our pattern piece here. But essentially what I want you to do is start in one corner and mark your long side measurement. So for me, that was 22, but I'm actually going to add 2 inches for seam allowance. So it'll be 24 inches for me, and I'm just going to draw a straight line. I'm gonna do the same exact thing, marking my shorter side, which was 17 inches, but I'm going to add 2 inches for seam allowance, so that is going to make it 19 inches. And right now what we're doing is just essentially creating like one big square or rectangle shape. So I'm gonna mark the 24 inches again. And I'm going to connect them on the top here. This is where the quilter's ruler comes in handy. I'm going to line up my short-sided edge with this 30-degree line right here. And then that is going to give me this additional 30 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that all the way across. Now for me, it ends up going off of my papers here, but that's okay. I then am going to extend my long line so that it meets. As you can tell, it's literally like 1/4 of an inch off. So I'm just gonna keep that in mind as I'm cutting. Go ahead and label my corners here. So this one will be A. This one down here will be B. This one over here will be C, and this one over here is going to be D. Now it's time to actually start cutting up our garment, you essentially want to get this to lay as flat as possible. And since we are using the sleeves to make straps, I'm gonna go ahead and take my scissors and start to cut up my sleeves here. Cut my shoulder seams as well. This is gonna help me to get this to lay flat. Collar. Now I want you to take your pattern piece and just kind of lay it out on your garment in the direction that you want the pattern to go. So for me, I'm gonna have my stripes going this way. Also, it just happens to be where I have the most space for my fabric. I'm gonna go ahead and cut open my sleeves at the seam. Cut through the cuff so that it lays flat. And at it, I'm gonna cut off the cuff. I forgot to mention this, but it might be easier depending on what kind of fabric your shirt is made out of if you go ahead and iron it as well so that everything is laying super flat as you cut it. Now, essentially this method, we are making bias tape. But we're not gonna be using it as bias tape. We're gonna be using it as straps. So if you were to actually be making bias tape here, you would want to do it on the 45-degree angle. Since we're not going to be applying this bias tape to any armholes or necklines, it doesn't need to have the curve that is usually the purpose of bias tape. This is just going to kind of like wrap around as a strap. So it's totally okay to do it on this just like regular grain line here, but just know that if you were using this method to make bias tape, you would want to make sure that you're doing it at the 45-degree angle. Now we're gonna make one really long bias tape strip just because we have all of these strips, and then we'll cut as needed. But essentially I am going to line up the raw edges that I cut at the 90-degree angle and sandwich them on top of each other to create another 90-degree angle. And then I can go ahead and pin it in place. I'm gonna do that for all of them. And when we take this over to our machine, we're gonna sew across the diagonal here so that when you unpin them, it's just going to be a closed seam from the outside. Make sure that when you're putting these two pieces of fabric together that you're doing it right sides together. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same exact thing on the other side, except this time I'm going to take the strap that I'm adding and put it underneath. I'm just gonna sew a straight stitch diagonally across here to attach the two pieces together. Go ahead and cut off the seam allowance. Now take your iron and press open the seam allowance so that it's laying flat. The seam allowance facing up, I want you to take one end of your tape and feed it through your 1-inch bias tape maker. You can use a pin or a seam ripper to help you here. Go. And you can gently start to pull, and you'll start to see your tape sort of fold here. Now before we keep going, I want you to pin the end of your fabric to your ironing board. Gently pull this out, and then you're just going to iron down and pull on your bias tape as you go. Be very careful if you have a plastic pin head here. Once you've put each one of your tapes through your bias tape maker, you should have something that looks like this. There should be 2 folds on one side, and then it'll look nice and clean on the other side. And what I want you to do now is I want you to fold it in half so that these raw edges are kind of sandwiched in between each other here, and line up the 2 folded edges. And then you're gonna press it with your iron to keep it all in place. Go ahead and do that for the entire length of the strip. I want you to take your bias tape over to your machine, and it's time to close it up. So essentially what we're gonna do is, because it was already folded and ironed down, there should be some creases here and it should fold really easily, but I'm just gonna sew a straight stitch. I'm lining up my folded edge. This is my open edge. I'm lining up my folded edge with the left side of my presser foot, and I have set my stitched width to 6.5. That way my needle shifts all the way over to the right. And as it sews, it'll be catching just this edge here to make sure that everything is secure and closed in place. Now that we have made our straps, it's time to actually hem our base piece. So right now, how I mapped it out is my piece is turned so that the right side of my fabric is facing down. So this is corner A, B, D, and C. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to hem the side seams. So I'm essentially going to fold over the side between B and D. I'm going to fold it over twice as if I'm doing a double folded hem. And then I'm going to stitch down the side. And I'm going to do the same exact thing as for the side that goes between A and C. This one is going to be a little bit awkward because it's on an angle and a point, but that's okay. We don't need to have it be too perfect here. So it's probably going to look like that. I'll cut it off, and then when we hem the bottom, this will fold up into itself so you aren't even going to see it. And there's going to be a strap there, so it really doesn't matter. Right now, like I said, we are going to be doing the double folded hem method. I'm going to show you how to mark your raw edge here. That way you're folding it up in an accurate way. You're going to want to mark 3 points from your raw edge: 1.5 inches, 1 inch, and 1/2 inch. So it'll be boom, boom, boom. You're going to go ahead and do that all the way across this line here, or this raw edge. Is I'm going to fold my raw edge so that this raw edge here lines up with my middle point, and the fold is on the bottom line. Then I'm going to fold again and line up my new folded edge with my top point. You can see that right there. Then I'm just going to take a pin or clip to secure it in place. I'm going to go ahead and do that all the way down so that everything is nice and secure and even. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the side that runs between point A and point C. And then I'm going to take it over to my machine, and I'm just going to do a straight stitch to secure it in place. Now that we have done both of our side seams, it's time to close both the top and the bottom seam. So what I want you to do is I want you to follow the same exact method that we used, the double fold method, except on the top here, this is A, this is the wrong side of my fabric facing up. I'm going to place my strap, the edge of my strap, in the hem, and I'm going to stitch on top, like right here, so that the strap is sticking out of the side here. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing on C here. For both of these, you want the strap to be going out. You just wanna barely catch the edge of the strap in your folds. So imagine this is double folded twice, so that they're both going outwards towards the outside of your garment. What I'm going to do for this one is, because it has this weird angle, I'm just going to fold it in on itself here, so that way there's a little bit of like a tab there. Then I'm going to fold it up once, and I will fold it up again, and that's going to give me that nice angle right there. I'm going to secure it in place, and then slide in my strap here. And use a clip to secure it. Okay, now I can continue to fold all the way down. I'm just gonna go ahead and take it over to my machine and do a straight stitch the same way we close the sides. Make sure that as you go over your straps here, you just do a couple of back stitches to secure the straps in place. Now it's time to attach the button presser foot to your sewing machine. Just make sure that whatever button you're using is big enough so that it creates a big enough hole that your strap can actually fit through. So go ahead and attach this to your sewing machine. You can use the magnetic part of your presser foot and clip it onto this little bar right here. And then you're gonna change your machine to the buttonhole foot setting. I want you to locate your corner B, and from the top side of the fabric, you're gonna make a buttonhole that goes diagonal to the corner. So I'm gonna make sure that as my buttonhole sews, it goes in this direction. Go ahead and snip the extra threads here. You are going to place a pin at the top of your buttonhole and another one at the bottom of your buttonhole. You're then going to take your seam ripper and you're going to stick it right in the middle of your buttonhole, and you're just going to start to slowly seam rip the middle inside of your buttonhole so that it opens up. Just be super careful, which is why we want the pins here, that you don't go past your buttonhole, because that will then open your buttonhole up and it won't be functional. So just go super slow here. And now you should have an opening. To secure the raw edges of my straps, I'm just going to place them underneath my presser foot and do a straight stitch across. That way it doesn't start to unravel. Go ahead and back stitch a couple of times. I'm going to demonstrate for you how to put it on the dress form, just because there's obviously a little bit of this strap situation. What you want to do is make sure that your top A, this is going to be your A corner, is up on the point here. This is your buttonhole corner. You're going to wrap this behind you. This top strap here is going to go through the buttonhole. You can feed it from the outside of your garment towards the inside, like this. Should look like this. So then you're gonna take your other strap here, and this is gonna go under your buttonhole strap. You're gonna loop these around in the front. You're gonna loop one more time for that one, and then you're going to tie in the front here, or honestly, wherever you prefer to tie, you can tie it in the back if you want. Whatever works, just depending on how long your straps ended up being. And this is what it's gonna look like. I couldn't end the video without trying it on myself. I love it! This is so cute and like simple and one of a kind, and who doesn't love a really good upcycle, right? And it really doesn't take that long either. I think if I wasn't filming, this would have taken me less than an hour. I feel like I could dress this up with like a nice trouser and heel, or wear it like with a pair of shorts and, I don't know, go to like a beach club or something. If you're on your sewing journey, make sure you check out my book, The Sewing Handbook. It's available for download in ebook form on my website. I'll link it down below, but it's 105 pages of absolutely everything that you need to know to start learning how to sew and to teach yourself how to sew. It's great, honestly, for all levels, whether you're a beginner or if you're an advanced and you want to kind of like have a resource on hand. There's a glossary with hundreds of words in the back. I mean, I'd show you how to do everything from like the techniques that we did in this video to, I think there's 19 tutorials total. So there's a world of information in this book. Make sure that you check it out. Also, don't forget to subscribe, comment down below what you want to see next, what you want to learn, and then also follow me on @OliviaSews on Instagram and TikTok. I'm always sharing like fun videos over there on how to sew and different techniques and tips that are like short and simple and sweet. And then also you get to see like my ideas come to life and the inspirations behind my pieces. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.